the chat so that we can let Sam Graves know you came to his empty chair town hall. And thank you. Good evening. Welcome to For Sisterhood's March 2025 meeting. I am Dr. Jane Frick, one of For Sisterhood's co-facilitators and your host for the evening. None of us For Sisterhooders who put together tonight's town hall meeting are paid outside commie agitators, left-wing nut jobs, or hysterical crybabies. But few of us For Sisterhooders are in our golden senior years age-wise. And since Trump, too, launched on January 20, we've joined the pool crowd across the nation of pissed off old ladies. For 8 years, For Sisterhood has been holding these monthly fall and spring meetings here in the library's community room, open to the public and the media. And this evening, we are recording our gathering in Zoom to be publicly online afterwards. What is For Sisterhood? A group of us women formed For Sisterhood back in February 2017 because we were devastated by the election of a TV reality star and sexual predator to the most powerful position in the world. Our group has sponsored and or collaborated with other social, justice, and political groups in over 200 programs. Events, marches, demonstration, parades, and actions, including, among others, rallies to end gun violence, voters' guide for school board, city, and state and national elections, a booklet of local LGBTQ plus friendly businesses, a youth essay contest celebrating women's right to vote, and petition drives leading to the successful passage by Missouri voters that expanded Medicaid, raised the minimum wage, said no to right to work, and restored abortion rights in the state's constitution. For Sisterhood received the NAACP YWCA Kelsey Bashir's Racial Justice Award in recognition of our multiple monthly meetings focusing on racial justice and our work in the Lloyd Warner Community Remembrance Project Coalition, which finally led to the placement of a historical marker outside the St. Joseph Museum in 2023 that acknowledges the 1933 lynching of Warner, a Black teenager here in St. Joseph. Every December, For Sisterhooders donate a carload of needed items for the YWCA's Women's Abuse Shelter. And every spring and fall, we raise the funds and then plant and dedicate trees honoring loved ones along the Northwest Parkway. There's a flyer with donation information and a basket to leave your dollars for trees on the tea table back there. And we'd love to get to 100 trees this year. Tonight, let's see here. In the past, our March For Sisterhood meetings have focused on women's achievements in recognition of Women's History Month. Last year in this room and on Zoom, we celebrated the work of three of the wisest women in our community, Diane Waddell, Marsha Rosenthal, and Loes Hedge. This year's empty chair town hall for Sam Graves breaks that tradition. We decided to hold it because Sam has stonewalled the many phone calls, postcards, and letters 6 districtors have sent him expressing our desire that he exercise his congressional authority and stop the cruel and blatantly illegal Trump-Musk coup underway. starting with the freezing of already legally funded U.S. aid monies and the illegal filing of its staff. Children throughout the world who rely on U.S. aid for food and medicine are suffering right now and dying. That's because of Doge, that's because of Musk, and that's because congressmen like Sam Graves don't stop him. Sam, in his email replies back to us, his computer-generated letters always make note of his, quote, full support for Doge's mission, and then encourages us to stay in touch with him by subscribing to his weekly taxpayer-funded MAGA propaganda newsletter. I thereby declare this town hall meeting open and ask that you stand as we repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sam has represented North Missouri's 6th district since 2001. During that time, we've lost population, a whole series of things that have not been particularly good for Northwest Missouri. Here to tell us about our Herzog-supported agribusiness MAGA congressman is Cydney Puckett. Herzog,
okay, there are way more people here than I expected, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm freaking terrified. But you know what? Unlike Sam, I showed up. I was born and raised here in St. Joe. About a year ago, I started kind of uncovering the ugly stuff, the connections between Herzog, dark money, Graves. Did you know his brother Todd Graves is the former Republican GOP chair?
Former prosecutor for Townhall.
Yes, so Todd actually has a law firm that they represented Greitens during that whole thing. So yeah, you know what kind of people these people are. And they depend on us not caring. I don't know, I'm 28. I was born in 1997. Sam started in 2001. I don't know anything different than what we have. And we have paid Sam something along the lines of $4.2 million since 2001 for him to not show up. I don't know about you, but when I don't go to my job, I don't get paid. So Sam likes to present himself as this small town American farmer boy. Dude's got 4 planes. I hear he's got a disgruntled ex-wife. So I don't know about those conservative Northwest Missouri family values that he talks about. He pretends to be like a military pilot. Have you seen all of the campaign I don't know, images and stuff that he uses where he wears a flight suit extremely similar to an Air Force style flight suit because he is part of an organization called the Confederate Air Force or something. They fly old military planes, nothing to do with Confederacy, just old. I don't know. But he loves to use pictures of him in that suit on campaign materials, even though he voted to approve a law against stolen valor in 2007. But I think Sam has forgotten, I don't know, a lot of the stuff that I don't think he knows who he is anymore. I think he spent too long in the swamp. He's become what he will rant on Twitter about, and
Who's this guy?
He just really expects Missourians to sit with this for another 24 years.
No.
So, in doing something about this, we have to think about breaking this. I call it the Herzog machine, because Herzog, they are the dark money. Todd Graves is the kingmaker. I think he couldn't get elected. I don't know, they decided Sam was more likable. I don't, after 25 years, it rubs off. But God, Sam Graves sucks. And I know he's gonna see that on the video. Hi, Sammy. Hey, I went to church camp with your daughter. She was mean to me. But that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because you don't do your job. And I think we deserve better. In fact, I know we do.
I'd like to point out that all the insignia on Sam's suit here are his major contributors. Doug Ray is here today. Doug, would you raise your hand? Doug can give you lots of information about where Sam gets all of his campaign money. Over $2 million this last time, and his opponent is here tonight. Pam, would you stand up and raise your hand? Sam had $2 million, $2,200,000 as a matter of fact, that he reported in his campaign chest. Sam and Pam was able to raise $12,000. This is what we're up against in Northwest Missouri. I just want to share with you, Sam Graves has spent over $226,000 at the Four Seasons in Wyoming since 2016. He goes out there every year and he goes to his favorite location to host his fundraisers and wine, dine, ski, and entertain lobbyists who give Sam huge sums of money. Last year, 2024, he only spent $46,254.77 at the resort alone. And of course, then he came back and all his big agribusiness buddies and the transportation lobbyists gave him even more money. That's the people Sam relates to. Does he relate to us? No. Okay, now we have a series of speakers and we are going to start with Dr. Elizabeth Elson. She has some words for us about Ukraine.
Okay, first I've been asked to read for you a letter that a very good friend of mine and former co-worker wrote that was published in the paper called Overwhelmed with Shame. I am horrified and ashamed of the way our guest, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, was treated at the White House last week.
Yes.
The spiders invited the fly into our parlor, and then in true bullies that they are, they sucker punched him, talking over him, shouting at him, attempting to shame him for the way he was dressed, and claiming that he hadn't even thanked them for what they had done for him. They should be thanking him as a true patriotic hero who is not only defending his country, but potentially all democracies from grasping oligarchs. They even called him a dictator. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. By turning our back on Ukraine and withdrawing from NATO and the WHO, we are rapidly becoming isolated from our allies and losing our mutual protections. I am overwhelmed with shame and disgust for our Republican leadership and for those who either don't or won't call them out for what is happening. This whole scenario was played out decades ago in Germany. Don't forget how that turned out. Signed, Sandy Jacobs.
83 years old.
Well, 3 years ago, when the war started, when Russia as an aggressor invaded Ukraine, we all know that's what happened. we took up at Persisterhood a collection to help the children and the women, their mothers, who left Ukraine to go into Poland. The Felician nuns, a Polish Catholic order that I had for 13 years, have a mission there, and the Benedictine nuns have a mission there. 3 years ago, and again tonight, my husband and I are going to pledge $250 in matching funds, and we'd like to encourage all of you in the little basket for Ukraine to match the $250. We will send $250 to the Felician nuns, $250 to the Benedictine nuns. And what I would suggest to you, if you have cash, you can put it in the little basket. If you want to write a check, then you need to make the check out to Janet, Janet, Pullen, Pullen. She's our treasurer. And then in the memo section of your check, then you could put down for Ukraine. And then the money will be split between the two different orders of nuns. And I thank you for your generosity. And I guess we'll start the basket on this side. Thank you.
Our next speaker in this room. I'm old. When you get to be 79, it's hard to remember. So our next speaker really, I think, is one of the reasons why we have this great card tonight. If you follow Jess Piper on her Blue Missouri, you betcha.
Hey friends, how's everybody doing?
All right.
Little Sam. Where is Sam?
Where is Sam? Where is Sam?
Last time?
Where is Sam?
I have no freaking clue. No idea. I know he was in St. Joe today. I know he's not here right now. That says something. We found out, I sent it to Jane, I sent it into our group, and they were like, is he gonna show? Well, hell no, he ain't gonna show. You think he's gonna stand up here with all of you looking at him and asking him questions about what he has been doing for 24 years? Wow. No, he's not gonna be here. This is what I have felt like for years. I felt like I've been wearing a tinfoil hat, telling people what they're doing to rural Missouri is what they're going to do to the entire United States. Did they listen? They didn't listen. And this is how I know. If you want to dismantle an area, you start with what? The schools. You start with the schools. And we already know that Missouri has 30% of our schools, 1 out of 3 schools is running a 4-day week. And that is because we have defunded our schools. People like Sam are okay with that. People like Sam are okay with taking millions of dollars from public schools and siphoning it over to private religious schools, who is then diverted all out by the Herzog Foundation, right? They not only create these schools, they are one of the companies who gets to distribute the money for the schools. This is corruption right in front of us, friends. There is a state representative in Smithville. His name is... Thank you, Josh Hurlburt. Somebody knew. Josh Hurlburt. He works for the Herzog Foundation part-time, and he is a state legislator full-time, or the vice versa. He is writing bills to siphon money to private religious schools while working for the place that siphons money to private religious schools. This is corruption. Our state is bound up with so much corruption. So in rural Missouri, we have taken away people's schools. They're going 4 days a week, and you'll hear people say, well, on the 5th day, these kids can find some educational activities. You know what they do? They go to the Casey's, right? They're working. And isn't it funny that at the same time that we have defunded schools, we have rolled back child labor laws? Friends, that is on purpose. Here is Sam. What has he done? We don't have any dignity and we don't have any representation because we have a representative who does not give a shit about any of us. Not one person in this room. And you know it because how many of you have written to him? How many of you have gotten a canned response? Exactly. I call his office all the time, and they know my name now, right? Brian from Hannibal. I called him, and he didn't want to have anything to do with me. You know what he said? Because I was worried about what Sam was up to with Doge and Elon Musk, and why is he voting for all these things? And he said, Jess, Why don't you tell your internet friends? By God, I'll tell my real friends. Sam Grace does not give a shit about you, and neither does Brian from Hannibal that's answering his phones. These people don't care. So this room is representative of what's going on. When I tell people, when I write my Substack and I say, there were 300 people and they're standing outside of the door to let Sam Graves know what they think, they're not going to believe me because they think we're unicorns. They think people like us don't exist in places like Missouri. You do exist. You all exist. You're worth dignity. You're worth Medicare. You're worth Medicare. You're worth a living wage. Trans rights are human rights. Education. This room is filled with a bunch of paid, agitating commies. Y'all got your check from Soros yet? I'm waiting on mine. Any damn day, right? What I want you to know is this is how change happens. This state has been run into the ground because of 22 years of a GOP supermajority that didn't care about any of you. But now that you guys know, now that you understand, now that you see that it has not stopped with our state, that it has gone on to the federal level, and this is what I've told people so many times. They would look at me when I go to the coast and they say, Jess, why don't you move? And I said this, because they're rolling over us to get to you. And guess what? They did. The thing about the people in this room is you are uniquely qualified to fight back because you have been doing it for decades. Decades. Sam Graves does not represent his district, and he hasn't for years. He doesn't care about any of you, and I want him to know that. We are here. We are not going away. We will stand up, and we will fight back. Thank you, friends.
And now we have Ron Johnson, and we're going to reshape and look at why this horrible propaganda machine is in place.
Where is Sam? One more time.
Where is Sam?
Thank you, Jess. Always inspirational. We appreciate you so much. Okay. We live in perilous times, frightening times, and we are awash in information and distrust. You want me to sit down? Okay.
Amen. Smash it in.
Smash it in.
There you go.
She said to smash it in there, so I did. Okay. We live in perilous times, frightening times, and we're awash in misinformation and distrust. Let's talk for a moment about how we can navigate this cesspool to get the valid news and information that we need. I'm Ron Johnson. I came from a family of public teachers. I spent three decades training collegiate journalists and supporting a free student press. My alumni work for news organizations large and small, from the Associated Press, the Washington Post, and New York Times to community news organizations. I spent a career supporting student journalists and the First Amendment. And like you, I'm astounded at what's happening. I'm scared, and I'm ready to fight back. So let's talk a moment, Professor here, talk about how we get the information that we receive. Our news no longer comes from a limited set of traditional sources, from trusted news sources like our own Walter Cronkite. It comes mainly through social media and specifically right-wing media, which dominate the information channels. It's a barrage. Those information snippets then are amplified within our own social media silos. Yes, we get the information, but we also get suggested information, and that becomes unwanted information. Into that chaos step the Trumpists and the social media manipulators. They amplify Trump's propaganda, repeating it again and again. So let's review Trump's approach. First, it's projection. Trump highlights the wrongdoings of others to cover his own malfeasance. Next, it's distraction. Every Trump accusation signals his own agenda, his own misbehavior. When you hear, they're eating our cats, they're eating our dogs, it's a laughable assertion that swallows the oxygen and targets an enemy, in that case, immigrants. It's deflection. Today, when Trump was asked about his top officials planning the Yemen attacks on an open text app on their phones, and including the Atlantic magazine editor, a surprise Trump deflected the attack. He said, "Oh, it's a failing magazine." It's serial lying and exaggeration. He weaves lie upon lie, exaggeration upon exaggeration into his ramblings. He drops a bomb or two a day, and the press simply cannot catch up. But he does mean, why? They can't keep up with the claims, the semantics and the abuses of power. It's impossible to fact check before they're amplified. And we get lost in the show and convince ourselves he can't mean what he says. But he does mean what he says. He's a calculated narcissist and a serial liar. When we dismiss him as dumb or crazy, when we say he's dumb or crazy, he wins. When we get lost in his word salad, he wins. When we get mad and get distracted, he wins. And unelected Elon Musk just continues his swath of cuts. Sam Graves is he here? Where is he? Okay, he's not here. Okay. Well, whoever he is, there. Sam meets only with hand-picked constituents, and he tweets about his small aircraft and the flood dikes that he helped build. He cheers the EPA when it cuts into our water protections. He inflates the immigration crisis. And Trump and Sam and Senators Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt, there's always an enemy. It's always got to be blamed on someone else. So what can we do? First, recognize propaganda. Pay attention to how Trump and Sam and Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt lie and dodge and project. Call it out. Investigate what they are really trying to do. Next, become media literate. Follow some trusted news sources, a number of them, whether it's the Associated Press, the New York Times, the Washington Post, PBS, CBS News, National Public Radio, Atlantic Magazine. You know, and these papers are covering important things for us, and we need to be on top of them. I still use Twitter and Facebook for news. I follow specific news sites there. I also follow qualified observers like Jess Piper, Heather Cox Richardson, and George P. Rodriguez. Evaluate your online sources. I'm a Kansas guy, and we had to separate the wheat from the chaff. That's what we need to do now. Finally, let's help each other. Share your insights with your friends, compare notes, suggest resources, and take care of yourself. Channel your fear and your anger. It can consume you. But pay attention to news and pay attention to yourself. Good luck and thanks for listening.
And next, we have a Zoom speaker, Kelly Lacina.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Representative Graves, you justified your yes vote for the Republican budget resolution, saying, quote, "We have to stop all waste, fraud, and abuse of our tax dollars." But we know your yes vote is the beginning of the shredding of our country's safety net for those most in need, while giving the wealthy elite tax cuts. Your MAGA budget proposes to cut $290 billion to the federal nutrition assistance programs over the next 10 years, while at the same time, the Missouri Senate considers a $300 million tax giveaway, with 67% of that going to the top 1% of Missourians. Missouri can't afford your budget, Sam. School lunch programs feed learning students who strengthen our communities. SNAP keeps our neighbors healthy and working, providing for 324,000 Missouri households, including 275,000 children. WIC provides nutrition to over 7 million in the U.S., including pregnant women, new mothers, babies, and children under 5. The USDA delivers WIC, SNAP, and school lunches using commodities provided by our farmers, positively affecting our local agricultural economies. Representative Graves, instead of cutting these vital services, wouldn't you support encouraging businesses and corporations to pay a living wage and offer employees enough hours to qualify for benefits? Representative Graves, $1 billion in SNAP increases our GDP by $1.54 billion. With statistics like this, why would we cut these programs? Your Congress has also proposed $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid. Medicaid is a crucial lifeline for individuals and their families. Among those depending on Medicaid are 60 to 80% of our seniors living in nursing homes, 36% of our Missouri's children, with nearly half of those living in rural areas. Medicaid covers many pregnant women and 40% of all births in Missouri. It also covers people under the age of 65 who are living with disabilities. Republicans are proposing Medicaid work requirements, while statistics already prove those who are on Medicaid who are able to work are already working. Most families who are on Medicaid already have employment that does not offer family health insurance, or their employers don't pay a high enough wage for the family to afford health insurance. Representative Graves, work requirements have been proven to cost states more to implement and maintain than the requirements have saved. I'm sure you've heard from our state legislators, but cutting funds to block grant funds from 90 down to 65% will only place further burden on our state and will not increase with the ever increasing cost of health care. Nor will the cuts allow for additional people to the state's Medicaid insurance pool. Representative Graves, would you in any way create or support legislation that would help curb increasing health costs? Would you create healthcare and pharmaceutical costs? And Representative Graves, how can you look us in the eye and justify the closing of even more rural hospitals and clinics because of cuts to Medicaid than those your rural constituents have already had to bear? How can you justify our already overburdened large hospital systems when your Medicaid cuts overwhelm large hospitals with more guaranteed increase in undeserved rural patients who will be visiting large hospital systems? Social Security is not an entitlement program. Misleading language only creates barriers that degrade human beings. In this case, our senior citizens. Beneficiaries and their employers paid into these programs. It is not an entitlement program. Social Security serves 67 million Americans, including 998,000 Missourians. The average Missourian receives $1,978 a month in Social Security, and it is the largest source of income for most of those beneficiaries. Over the weekend, through a thinly veiled threat, seniors learned that if their payment was missing, they could be considered a fraudster for complaining about a missing payment. They were just expected to hush up. Representative Graves, while alternative facts meant to undermine Social Security are being thrown around by Elon Doe's crew, they have illegally fired 7,000 Social Security employees, closed offices across the U.S., and they are ending the ability to access Social Security help by phone and increasing necessary computer use by seniors who often don't have the internet or have the capability of using the internet. These decisions only create more hurdles and greater risks to our elderly who are merely trying to access their Social Security they paid for. Not surprisingly, these actions will once again pave the way to a failing department, which will lead to privatization. What will you do, Representative Graves, to help seniors who only want to access the money they invested in Social Security? Other departments being attacked include our Department of Veterans Affairs, HUD, CDC, FDA, NIH, plus our membership with WHO, all providing life-sustaining services, all with the goal of keeping Americans and our neighbors throughout the world healthy and alive. Continuous demonization and destruction of our federal agencies, their employees, and the recipients of social safety net programs undermines a healthy society. Without health insurance, people incur lifelong debt. Without these services, our neighbors, our loved ones, and my daughters will experience life-threatening consequences. I've talked about numbers and monies a lot this night, but this is not really about numbers or money. This is about humanity. It's about treating people. It is about treating people with dignity, care, and respect. Unfortunately, while Missourians continue to pay taxes for now defunct departments, we will lose our lives due to your cuts, while your corporate donors are favored with disproportionate tax breaks over your constituents. Human beings will die because of your decisions, Representative Graves.
Thank you, Kelly. All of the testimonies that are being read tonight are available as links from the agenda, and you can print those out and read them also. We really appreciate you doing this, and we are going to move now to the human tragedies of the Trump-Musk Graves slashing of veterans' benefits.
Bear with me. I usually am quite the activist, but I am still recovering from a stroke that happened last year. So I'm going to read so that I don't forget all of my thoughts. My name is Pam Petersen. I am the daughter, niece of World War II veterans, the wife and sister of Vietnam combat veterans, the mother of a Marine Corps Somalia veteran who has health issues from the burn pit exposure while he was in the Mediterranean. This month, my husband and I celebrate our 57th wedding anniversary together. But on our first anniversary, he was in Vietnam combat. My brother followed him after he got home. He is a Purple Heart recipient who was wounded in an ambush of his convoy. He suffered from Agent Orange related cancers, and he died in 2013. It took years of completing complicated and extremely confusing disability claims before the VA finally granted him 100% disability for being contaminated by the chemical and toxins that were sprayed throughout Vietnam by the US military while he was there. My husband now receives 100% VA disability payments too. He just got them this past winter. Also, he was exposed to Agent Orange while he was in Vietnam. He is insulin-dependent diabetic. He lost his pancreas in 2020, his right kidney in 2023, and he suffers from neuropathy in his feet, legs, and left arm. Thanks to Congress passing Biden's 2020 PACT Act, which provides benefits to veterans exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and the other toxic substances, while eliminating the need for them to prove their illness is service-related. We didn't have to file an appeal so many multiple claims like I did for my brother. We had to file 4 times over 7 years. The VA is and was understaffed as long as I can remember. I lived walking distance to Hines VA Hospital in Illinois. My father got pretty good care there after World War II, and the Korean veterans did too. But it was understaffed for Vietnam veterans. And now DOJ is laying off or firing thousands of employees, some of which are veterans. Seems very unproductive and inefficient. We need more qualified VA employees, not less. But you are in favor of the DOJ staff reductions. I'm pretty certain that a lot of vets think you, Sam, are one of them. I know in Nottoway County, you're very well thought of. You wear your costume, you fly in on your plane, but you never, ever served in the United States military. You like showing off your flying skills at air shows by swooping down and then up again on the runways in one of your 4 private planes you own. This is an expensive hobby for vets you don't care about. But then you're not a vet, and I'm going to repeat it. You're not a damn vet. Your record on veterans' rights and benefits proves that you are not a supporter and friend of those who, unlike you, served honorably for our country. You voted no on the VA Employment Fairness Act of 2021. You voted no on the Veteran Service Recognition Act of 2022 that helped veterans who served, that came in from Puerto Rico, served in Vietnam, served in Iraq and Afghanistan, but you voted no to give them citizenship. You voted no on the PACT Act of 2022 that ensured my husband got his disability and that my son could get benefits eventually too. We're still fighting for that. You voted no on the Everest Act to automatically enroll the veterans. You voted no on the Equal Access to Contraception for Veterans Act, but you voted yes recently on the stopgap federal spending bill that passed just this month. You voted to slash more than $20 billion in funding from the PACT Act to provide care for veterans exposed to the burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances like my husband and son. I have spent decades fighting for veterans' rights, encouraging veterans to apply for their benefits. Most young people don't believe they're entitled because they're not wounded or lost a leg, but they fucking earned their benefits. Yeah. Men and women who step up, putting their lives on the line and serving where our country sent them. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, doesn't matter where they came from. They serve our country. Then when it comes time to discharge them, some traumatized by war or military accidents, which my brother also severely PTSD. He laid for 5 days under dead bodies so he wouldn't be disemboweled because the VC were killing the wounded as they came down the line. His screaming nightmares were from the time he was 20 till the time he died in his 60s. Then when it's time to take care of them, you forget them. They get no VA treatment. They get no deprogramming or decompressing. Congressman Graves, your constituents need more than a smile and a wave and you coming down and sitting on a trailer, having a beer. As you fly in and out of Northwest Missouri in one of your planes, they need more from you. They need more. Working in DC to ensure that our veterans receive the benefits and treatments that they deserve when they return home from military service here to Northwest Missouri and throughout the state. You have the power to help. You can begin by using your seniority in the Republican MAGA caucus to get the 20 billion you voted to cut from the PACT Act into the stopgap federal funding bill restored. And you can demand the DOGE staff cuts in the VA be restored. Yes. This is what we expect from the District 6 congressman. You get elected by Republicans, but you take an oath to protect your constituents no matter whether you agree with them or not. Damn brave, you're a fucking coward.
Our next speaker is Loes Hedge. And I do want to point out that the state's NAACP gave Sam an F rating.
Hello, everybody. I'm the DEI speaker. And I mean that because DEI for me stands for determined, empowered, and invested. One of my favorite poets, Langston Hughes, wrote a poem in 1926 called I Too, T-O-O. And in the poem delved into the experience of a Black man navigating the American society, emphasizing his claim to be part of that American identity. And today, 2025, African Americans are symbolically being told the same thing that they were told in 1926. Yep. To stay in the kitchen, come back to the back door, go to the back of the bus, or better yet, go back where you came from. I have never seen Sam Grave. Our church is over in the Midtown. I've never seen Sam Grave. Even when I was in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, we went to, he wasn't even in his office. I don't know where he was. Congressman Grave and President Trump, they espouse, they sign off on all of those things that should have been settled a long time ago. We're back to those things. Our children are having to manipulate, move things around because they don't understand this. They don't understand why they're back to saying that you are not a citizen. You don't belong here. I asked the question, what has diversity, equity, and inclusion done for Donald Trump or done to them or done to Sam Graves? What have they lost or what do they lack because of people of color having same opportunities? Nothing. So I have no respect for them. I have no respect for them. Our Congressman, Sam Graves, when the Biden administration said that there was going to be about $2 billion allotted to Black farmers, he was the first one squealing. And here's what he said. What happened to equal protection under the law? Then he said, this is wrong, un-American. This from a man who had collected probably by then $1 million for his farm subsidies. So I have no respect for him. He opposed, these are some of the things he opposes. He opposes consumer protection, gun control, disaster relief, environmental protection, humane immigration policies. We see what's happening now with the immigration, and it's ridiculous because they don't count those people as being human. He is against taxing the wealthy. He's against women's rights. And all of these things align with the 2025 plan of the Republican administration. I want you to know that those of us of color, and I can't speak for everybody, but I will speak for a lot of folks. We are not going to stand by and let this go on. Children and our young people that usually when a Black person gets the top position, they have to be twice as good. I hope I'm not offending you all, but I know that. Yeah, we know that. So our efforts cannot wane. We're not going to stop trying, and we're not going to give up. We're in the fight, and we're going to stay the course. As the madness continues with these attacks on our rights and our attempts to eliminate the funding for our social programs, we will find ways to get involved and invest in our young people and the people who need our help. The DEI, as I said, determined, say that with me, determined, empowered, and invested. Thank you.
Where is Sam? Where is Sam? Where is Sam? Where is Sam? Where is Sam?
Where's Nancy?
If you haven't ridden in a car 2 hours with Pam Petersen going to a protest, you have not lived a good life. I'm Nancy Zeliff, and I have met Sam Graves once. And I live 20 miles from the Graves Airport and the family farms. I'm an Atchison County resident, a 40-year public educator, now retired. And I taught at Fairfax R3 for 3 years, Sam, in your neighborhood, most certainly. And I'm here to remind you of our right to talk to you as our congressman, but more importantly, our constitutional right to vote. I'm here to address the SAVE Act, S-A-V-E, Safeguard American Voter Eligibility. It requires all Americans who need to register to vote or re-register to show up in person at your county election office. Think where that is, folks. Do you know where that is? In what courthouse? In what county? And for the vast majority of Americans, this will require a passport or birth certificate. My birth certificate does not say Zeliff. Like 69 million women Americans who opted to take a different surname, my birth certificate showing my citizenship does not reflect my current name. Fortunately, I have a passport. So I am tonight telling my daughters, renew your passport immediately before this travesty might go into effect.
And immigrants.
Yeah, and real IDs, folks, are not going to work. We did have to show citizenship to get those if you have one. But non-citizens can have a real ID as well. Here are some statistics from the Center for American Progress. 146 million American citizens do not have a valid passport. High rates of passport ownership are overwhelmingly concentrated in what color states? Blue. While low rates of passports are concentrated in red states. Lower income Americans would be dramatically affected with no passport. Only 1 in 5 Americans with income below $50,000 have a valid passport. Again, 84% of women change their last name when they marry. Also, Republicans, according to this research, are less likely to have a passport. So what are the implications? This legislation would drastically change the way all citizens must register to vote, or if currently registered to vote, to change your registration status. You move across town. A 25-year-old moves to a different apartment building or even unit. That might require then a re-registration. One would have to go in person to your county election office, show evidence of citizenship to register to vote. This greatly impacts rural America. Yep. In each federal election cycle, approximately 80 million Americans register for the first time or have changed their registration status. Remember, they would have to go in person to their election office and show citizenship proof. What about the very, very rural Americans? What about Arizona, Oregon, California? Some of those may have to drive 3 to 4 hours and up to 8 hours round trip to their county election office. Transgender Americans, approximately 1.3% of US adults, or 33 million eligible voters, will also have experienced difficulty registering to vote, since documents would not reflect the name they are currently choosing to use. Automatic voter registration administered to the motor vehicle offices would be complicated as well. I have readers on. I can barely read that, Michelle, but I can see it says 1 minute. Thank you. Last fall, I was a volunteer for the League of Women Voters and went to a college campus to help register students. These third-party volunteer efforts would no longer be available through the SAVE Act. And the SAVE Act is a costly and faulty solution to where there is a non-existent problem. If the SAVE Act were in place, I would have to approximately do a 1-hour round trip to Rockport. And I could wave at Sam's Airport and his farms as I go by. But what about you? What about all the disenfranchised Americans that would have difficulty doing that and may not have the necessary documentation to show citizenship? It is truly voter suppression. So Sam, as I end, I have this question or two for you. So it appears your 2 daughters, 1 daughter-in-law, and 4 granddaughters might have to travel to their county seats of Platte City, Columbia, and Rockport at some point in their lives to register or re-register to vote. Those are short trips. They probably will have a passport or their birth certificate shows their given name. So is this of concern to you? No, but it's of concern to every American. This is voter suppression.
I'm going to stand. Hi, I'm Mary Beth Rebels, and I'm director of the St. Joseph Public Library. Support for the Institute of Museum and Library Services and ask Congressman Graves for his support. The Institute of Museum and Library Services is also called the IMLS. In an executive order issued on March 14th by President Trump, he targeted the IMLS. The IMLS provides congressionally appropriated funds to state libraries. It is just one of the many federal programs being targeted under the guise of improving government efficiency. In Missouri, the state library uses the funds for statewide initiatives and subgrants to libraries. Last year, our Missouri State Library received about $3.4 million. and they funded several vital services to libraries. The first being a statewide courier that allows Missouri libraries to economically share materials. The funds help underwrite the cost of the Missouri Evergreen Consortium, which is an integrated library system with more than 70 member libraries, including mine, the St. Joseph Public Library. We share an online catalog and give access to millions of books to even the smallest of our member libraries and their card holders. Federal funds also cover a third of the budget of the Wolfner Talking Book and Braille Library in Jefferson City, and also support the Missouri Digital Heritage Project, which is dedicated to preserving Missouri's history. Locally, the St. Joseph Public Library uses federal funds via the Missouri State Library to offset the costs of our Excel Adult High School program. This allows adults to obtain a high school diploma. The Rolling Hills Library also offers this program. We've had 9 graduates so far. We used federal funds to also purchase Chromebooks and hotspots for our students in that program. During the pandemic, we were able to purchase with federal funds hotspots and buy service for people so that they could take the internet home. That has been so popular that we've continued that program and we fund that ourselves right now. We use IMLS grant funds routinely to keep up to date with technology. Right now, I'm working on a grant to replace about 20 computers because Windows 11 is going away. So we need to upgrade our technology at the library and we need help to get that done.
Call Josh Hawley.
Been there, done that. The executive order, I also need to say for Sarah Wilson, I really focused on libraries. IMLS gives federal funds to museums also. And the St. Joseph Museum also depends on those federal funds. And they use it to preserve their collections. And they're in the midst of also applying for grants right now. The executive order states that the IMLS must be reduced to its statutory functions and that all non-statutory components and functions shall be eliminated to the maximum extent. As of now, the grants to state libraries is a statutory function, but it is unclear if there is a move to modify that. Hence, I'm here talking to you today. The St. Joseph Public Library is committed to providing community-focused programs and services to our residents. But we are also committed to speaking up and supporting the entire library community, especially in our state of Missouri, and we rely on those federal funds. So today, Congressman Graves and the people in this room, I am asking for your support of libraries in St. Joseph, in the state of Missouri, and our entire country. Thank you.
The last thing I read was that the funds had been frozen. So there are a lot of grants that are not going to be coming to St. Joe. I am so glad today that we have Dakota Allen and Brian Kirk here to talk about an issue that is extraordinarily important, the politicized existence of LGBTQIA plus material.
I am going to sit because it's standing room only and I've been standing. I have not spoken to a crowd like this since my FFA days, so give yourselves a round of applause for showing. Like Jane mentioned, my name is Dakota Allen. I'm a resident of Missouri's 6th District, the district that Sam Graves is supposed to represent. Brian Kirk, candidate for St. Joseph School Board, kindly He kindly helped in preparing my statement today. I happen to be proudly queer, which when I first came out in a small town as the first person to come out, just a town over from Sam Graves, was still a pretty bad word. I did know Sam Graves fairly personally. I lifeguarded in his hometown of Tarkio, Missouri, where I lifeguarded with one of his family members. He arranged for a tour of the Capitol for me and my family, where I met him personally. Yet somehow, in his votes, statements, and refusal to stand up against hate-based policy, he seems to forget that people like me exist. Sam has a long history of voting against LGBTQIA interests and vocally opposing efforts to expand our rights. Starting in 2006, he signed on as a co-sponsor for a bill that would have banned same-sex marriage nationwide. In 2009, he voted against expanding hate crime laws to apply to crimes perpetrated against our community, and even voted against the military budget the same year because it asked the military to reconsider Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The next year in 2010, when given the opportunity to vote on Don't Ask, Don't Tell, you guessed it, he voted to keep it in place. In 2016, he couldn't even get behind legislation that would have banned using government funds to discriminate against LGBTQI Americans. Since then, he's been derelict in his responsibility to stand up for trans Missourians, as Trump has signed executive orders to force trans soldiers out of the military. He's consistently voted against every rendition of the Equal Rights Act, both renditions of the Respect for Marriage Act, and he continues to support legislation under this Trump administration impacting trans youth negatively. Recently, Representative Graves voiced his support for dismantling USAID, validating this with hateful comments about the various LGBTQI outreach programs in areas of the world where our community faces persecution, lack of resources, and disease. It seems clear that the many programs that they've chosen to cut because of fraud and waste are simply the programs that mention our community in some way, shape, or form in the title or description. In spite of the benefits that his own constituents, farmers like him, reap from USAID programming. Legislators like Sam Graves at the national stage set the tone for state politics. In Missouri, we've witnessed an onslaught of legislation targeting the LGBTQIA Missourians. This year, the attacks have come at an unprecedented rate with an obscene disregard for the will of the people, which has been demonstrated through the overwhelming opposition at testimony against these bills. When our federal representative isn't even expected to show up and listen to his constituents, why would our state legislators? Why are we if he's going to continue to center hatred for our community in these types of policies, why are we surprised when Missouri is leading the nation in anti-LGBT bills? It seems to be becoming the #1 priority for many legislators, despite the fact that our education system ranks in the bottom 10 states in various areas of measurement. Our rural highways and roads continue to suffer, and foreign entities and corporations continue to encroach on farmland and small business opportunities across the state. When I graduated with 12 kids in my class, I might add, I had big dreams. I actually did look forward to being involved in politics and having conversations about fixing the things I just mentioned. In a span of 4 years, I watched Trump's America and followers like Sam Graves turn my career into one of defending my rights and, more pressingly, the rights of those around me. I became a totally different type of civil rights activist than I expected, redefining my own relationship with my family because my existence had become politicized. I hide parts of myself still today to keep myself safe. I never wanted to be in this position, but I'm here today for the people growing up in communities like I did, with monsters like Sam Graves who make them feel alone. And to them, I say, you are not alone. My colleague Brian decided to run for school board here in St. Joseph because Sam Graves and his party are attempting to erase LGBTQI persons from public life, to send us back to the closet or worse. By running as an openly gay man for local office, Brian stands as an example to all of our elected officials that we will not be silent. As queer people, we have much to offer, and we deserve to be respected, listened to, and compassionately and justly represented by those at the state and federal levels. Each day, Sam continues to allow culture wars to become the priority over sound legislation is a day he ignores the approximately 58,000 queer folks in his district alone and the hundreds of thousands of constituents ready to hear conversations about legislation focused on funding our schools, repairing our infrastructure, protecting our farmland, and creating equal opportunities for all Northwest Missourians and beyond. As staunchly as I stand here ready to defend my community, I am ready for us to have conversations about policy we all actually want to see. So let's start having it.
I taught for 40 years. I'm one of those dangerous professors at the collegiate level. So take what I say with a grain of salt. How can you protect something if it no longer exists? As demand for fresh water increases and supply decreases due to climate change, rivers and reservoirs are beginning to run dry across the United States. In a recent letter called Ditching Lotus Overreach, Sam Graves claimed that President Obama in 2015 decided to stretch way beyond recognition the authority the federal government has under the 72 Clean Water Act, that under Obama's definition, the federal government could regulate practically every little ditch or pond in the country. He claimed it was a dramatic overreach. Missing from his letter is any information about the purpose of the Clean Water Act or the Clean Water Rule that were enacted to protect wetlands vital to water quality. Missing is any admission that the current activist Supreme Court, Alito in particular, stretched beyond science, beyond judicial precedent, and beyond common sense, the meaning of the word adjacent, transforming it to adjoining. First, a bit of background. In 1969, the severely polluted Cuyahoga River in Ohio, covered in a thick layer of oil, caught fire. And it became a symbol of the nation's environmental problems and played a key role in the creation of the EPA and the Clean Water Act, whose purpose was to restore and maintain the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of our nation's waters, establishing procedures to monitor water contaminated by naturally occurring chemicals and minerals like arsenic, radon, and uranium. Local land use practices of fertilizers and pesticides, concentrated feeding operations, manufacturing processes, and sewer overflows and wastewater releases. Oh, who wouldn't want those monitored? The clean in clean water is a relative term, only measuring acceptable levels of pollutants for specific bodies of water. Will the water be used for drinking, to protect fish and wildlife, provide recreation, or support agriculture, industry, and navigation? The Act requires states to establish standards. Unfortunately, half of U.S. stream and river miles violate water quality standards, and 70% of lakes, ponds, and reservoirs are impaired. Missouri has a vast network of waterways. Some have problems. Stretches of the Missouri River exceed water quality standards for mercury, bacteria, sediment, PCBs, and nutrients. Some have elevated levels of nitrogen and phosphorus, which lead to toxin-producing algae blooms that sicken or kill people, animals, cattle, fish, right, and degrade riparian habitats for birds. So, which waters are protected? The original 1972 law included intermittent streams and wetlands. But in 2006, the Supreme Court held that the term waters would include only those relatively permanent, standing or continuously flowing bodies of water. And wetlands then had to have significant nexus to them. In 2015, Obama's Clean Water Rule provided federal water protection to additional streams and wetlands which have a significant hydrological and ecological connection to navigable waters. Putting it simply, if I dump excess fertilizer or pesticides on a stream that doesn't appear to be connected with any lake or river, do I really think that those chemicals aren't going to find their way to the larger body of water? The Clean Water Rule was contested by the Trump administration, which published a replacement rule, which then got thrown out. And then in May of 2023, remember this one, the Sacketts of Idaho wanted to build a house on land that EPA wanted to protect. Rather than just giving the couple relief, the Supreme Court ruled more broadly, declaring that only wetlands and permanent bodies of water with a continuous service connection, right, to traditional interstate navigable waters are covered by the Clean Water Act. Not only wetlands, now only wetlands that are indistinguishable from permanent waters are protected. You need to hear this. Professor Adam Ward of the Biological and Ecological Engineering Department at Oregon State University tells us that wetlands are buffers against pollution by storing and treating contaminated runoff. They contain floodwaters, dissipate coastal surges, recharge aquifers, and keep nature healthy, supporting biodiversity and life cycles of many recreational fish species. The Clean Water Act does not apply to every puddle, which Sam Graves seems to think when he says that they could regulate every ditch. Slashing protections of wetlands that are adjacent to our bays, lakes, and rivers will leave Americans with worse drinking water. Adjacent wetlands can be some distance from a lake or a river, but guess what? The water's connect the two by flowing underground, below a dike, levee, berm, or some other short distance of dry land. But Alito required wetlands to have a continuous surface connection to permanent and protected streams, ponds, and waters. That requirement of a wetland being visually indistinguishable from surface water could be described as adjoining, not adjacent, right? So who's guilty of the dramatic overreach, and who is scientifically illiterate about hydrology and the importance of wetlands? So one last point. If Sam had come tonight, I might even give him a copy of The Swine Republic by analytical chemist Dr. Chris Jones, who has documented the poor quality of Iowa's water and who has explained how manure and commercial fertilizers abroad broadly on Iowa land enter streams weeks or months after application, and how land saturated with nitrates is then dried out with field tiles, providing that water with a first-class ticket to the Missouri and Mississippi rivers until it reaches the Gulf of Mexico, where it feeds a massive growth of algae who die and create a dead zone. A multi-state Mississippi River Gulf of Mexico task force was created to address the issue. Guess what? With the goal of reducing the size of the dead zone to just a mere 1,900 square miles over the next 10 years. That's the combined size of Buchanan, Andrew, Atchison, and Hope counties combined. But right now, that dead zone covers 6,705 square miles, or the entire state of New Jersey. Well, since 10 of Sam's counties border Missouri and Mississippi, do you think he's going to go there to help out? Maybe he should also be interested that just north of our state in Des Moines, they had to invest in a 10 million gallon per day nitrate removal facility so that its citizens can drink some clean water. Hey, Sam, right? Are you interested in how Iowa's and Missouri's farming practices are affecting the quality of our water? And do you understand how important it is to protect wetlands? Hey, Sam, where are you?
Yes, and this is a wonderful new definition of standing room only. Hooray for you all. Appreciate you all. And tonight I want to share empathy for a group that I particularly want to honor, and I know you all want to honor as well. I think the most significant thing I might say about how we
can translate this locally was that the wonderful woman that was originally asked to speak tonight, who as an immigrant is here and is in this country legally, was scared to come.
And that's the truth. That's bullshit. Sorry.
She has been extremely active and done many, many, many beautiful things, coordinating beautiful activities for the city of St. Joseph and loves it here, but she was scared to come. In lieu of that, I'm going to share just a tiny bit of a letter that you have heard about that was written on March 19th on the eastern part of our country. This was a letter written by Mahmoud Khalil, who is now in prison. Just going to read a couple bits of it so that you can be reminded of what persons are going through that have been and are in our country appropriately and legally, and who have granted and given us great things. So my name is Mahmoud Khalil, and I am a political prisoner, and I am writing you from a detention facility in Louisiana, where I wake up to cold mornings and spend long days bearing witness to the quiet injustice underway against a great number of people precluded from the protections of the law. Justice escapes the contours of this nation's immigrant families. On March 8th, I was taken by DHS agents who refused to provide a warrant and accosted my wife. And by now, that footage has gone all over the United States, has been made public. And my arrest, I believe, was a consequence directly of exercising my rights to free speech, as I advocated for free Palestine and to end the genocide of Gaza, and resumed in full force, which was resumed in full force Monday night. I was born in Palestine in a refugee camp, and I have always believed it is my duty not to just liberate myself from the oppressor, but also to liberate my oppressors from their hatred and fear. While I await legal decisions that hold for the future of my wife and child in the balance, those who enabled my targeting remain comfortably at Columbia University, where the president and dean targeted me arbitrarily, disciplining my pro-Palestinian students and friends. Columbia targeted me for my activism. If anything, my detention is a testament to the strength of the student movement in shifting public opinion toward Palestine liberation. And students have long been at the forefront of change, leading the charge against the Vietnam War, standing in the front lines of civil rights movement, and driving the struggle against apartheid in South Africa. The Trump administration is targeting me as a broader strategy to suppress dissent. Visa holders, green card holders, and citizens alike will all be targeted, as we have just seen tonight. They'll be targeted for their political beliefs, and in the weeks ahead, students, advocates, and elected officials must unite to defend the right to protect for and protest for Palestine. At stake are not just our voices, but the fundamental civil liberties of all.
We had projected that we would end at 7:10, but gosh, thank you all so much for staying here. We have to be out of the library by like 7:50. I'm willing, I'll be here. I want to thank Rolling Hills Library for letting us few little housekeeping things. Number one is, I have been asked, would you raise your hand if you came? Because we personally got enough money to put that sign out there at the Belt in Ashland. If you're here because of the sign, would you raise your hand?
You saw the billboard?
The billboard?
The electronic billboard.
The electronic billboard.
Thank you for paying attention at stoplights.
Thank you. How many of you saw the electronic billboard?
Yay.
Yes, okay. I have just a couple of other things. In the agenda, and there are QR codes back there that will allow you to get to the agenda. On the front page, everyone who read tonight, their testimony is there. So if you want to go back and read it, welcome. Also, the testimony is there about the immigrant purge going on in our country right now. On the backside, we like to talk about being woke, even though it's St. Joe, and awaken to the needs of others to be well-informed, thoughtful, compassionate, humble, and kind, eager to make the world a better place for all people. And we have a listing of activities that we hope you will consider participating in. And one of them is to join the Missouri Right to Read Coalition. It's free. If you're watching what's going on in the state right now, our Secretary of State is coming at school libraries once again, trying to ban them. There is a march that I guess I'm gonna have to be at on Saturday, April 5th. Something about Brian Kirk's t-shirts. Anyone want one? Have a tee? Okay, they're free. That it tells you just a little bit about it. This is nationally. The more people we have standing up for our free speech, for our democracy. This is crazy when the President of the United States and the unelected richest man in the world tweet out and tell their followers to go after federal judges who are shutting down their illegal programs because the Republican Congress won't do it. We are in real trouble. And they're telling us the only thing we can do is march, and we've got to do that.
To the streets! To the streets!
Back there, including the importance of voting for Brian Kirk and Cassandra Ville. There are street signs back there. We are talking about free speech. If you want to give donations for the Ukraine, we'd love to have that too. And Jessica has where'd Jess go?
She snuck out because she knew she'd have to talk to everybody. She'd never leave. She knew she'd talk.
Okay. Is she gone? Okay. Jess wanted me to know that, guess who was standing out in the doorway when we first started?
Ken Reader.
No. I'm surprised he owns one.
He wouldn't come in. He wouldn't face us. This is phenomenal. Voice of America, gone. You know, PBS, National Public Radio, on the chopping block. What has happened to our country? Does anyone will take 5 minutes for comments from the audience, and then we're going to close it out.
I have a question. I'm a brown person, man. A lot of brown questions need to be asked. As many as you know me, my name's Guillermo Pena. I'm from Grand Island, Nebraska. My business partner has a hotel here and amongst other properties. My concern specifically is for the sisters, single mothers who can't afford an apartment or even a house. My generation has not afforded an apartment or buy a house. No housing association or neighborhood can save us. Nobody can save us. Only young people can. Immigrants are under attack. How will we solve that? Our cattle ranchers need us. They need us. Our dairy farmers need us. Your fruit, you need us. The meat packing industry with disposable gloves. My people in the meat packing industry were disposable gloves during COVID. Remember that, Sam Graves. You took us to the grave. Young people matter. It's time we stand up. The people of my color don't have a voice. The future depends on us, and all I can say, when minimum wage is under attack and the oligarchy is here and we're living in it, it is time to stand up. If leadership does not want to do it, we the people will.
Thank you all so much.